Merry Christmas, everybody. Haku here with my live reaction to read through for Tower of God, Chapter 643, or Season 3, Episode 226. It's after midnight now, but I really wanted to read Tower of God. So I haven't been home much for the past few days, so I never had the opportunity to record or anything, and I was very tired when I did get home pretty late. But I really want to read, so before we do, we got a little bit of discussion to do. There's plenty to talk about, and I guess really the things that I want to talk about, first off, is there was a mistake in last week's chapter that I probably kind of thought, okay, it's just a translation mistake. We've seen it all the time. Lopobia and Pobedao getting mixed up. When Yurik's like, oh, there's that Four Eyes. Oh, and also that's the leader of the Pobedao family. And it's like, no, that's the leader of the... Or he's like, that must be the leader of the Pobedao family. Yeah, and it's like, no. Clearly, they should mean Lopobia. He just brought up Gastong. He's met Gastong already. We literally saw them interact on Floor of Death. So there's a mistake there with the translation. And that's what pretty much every reaction that I watched was like, it's just a mistake with the translation. But here's the thing. Occasionally, not every chapter, just every once in a while, I will read the Korean comments just to see what people are saying and stuff. So I was reading the Korean comments for last week's chapter, and that was something that they were complaining about. They were like, there were a lot of complaints because there kind of is a lot to complain about with this arc of Tower of God. But one of the things, they were like, how could you mess that up? How could the author of this get Lopobia and Pobedao mixed up? And I agree that that is a very weird mistake. Like, it's an easy, simple mistake to make, but it's a weird mistake for CU to make. So that wasn't a translation issue. They just translated it as it was. It was a mistake in the actual original Korean, which is really weird. And you would figure the translators would be like, that's a mistake, so let's change it. But they didn't. But it definitely is a mistake, because he was definitely talking about Trauma Ray. He definitely was not talking about Gastong. So it's very odd. And what that made me think about, and what it made me worry a little bit about, this is all just speculation on my part. It made me worry. We know a lot of the art for Tower of God, a lot of things have been kind of picked up by the team surrounding CU, by the assistants rather than CU himself, and it made me kind of nervous. There are a lot of things this arc where it's like, people have complained, how did CU get so kind of bad at some of this dialogue, bad at some of this writing? I kept seeing that a lot during the branch leader fights, which we keep bringing up as bad. And it just kind of makes me wonder, like, some of these chapters, it's like, oh, CU's back, CU's writing it again. And some of these chapters, people would be joking in the comments. They're like, okay, this definitely isn't CU. This is, like, weirdly not good. And Tower of God's just got more and more drastically inconsistent in its quality. And it's just really making me wonder, how much is CU potentially not even writing? How much might be getting picked up by assistants or by the surrounding team? And honestly, how much control does CU have over that? Because at the end of the day, Tower of God's a Naver or line property, and it was one of their biggest, probably still is one of their biggest, so they kind of want to make as much money as possible from that. So I wonder how much say, even though he's the original creator, CU has. We hear all the time manga for different publishing companies saying, yeah, I wanted to do this, but the publishing company, the editors that they hire, wouldn't let me do this or wanted me to do this instead. How much is CU controlled by that? How much is Tower of God controlled by that? How much can they just tell him, hey, we don't want you to go in this direction, or hey, we want you to do this? And how much is not actually written by CU himself? Because again, this seems like a very odd mistake for CU himself to make. Again, he's only human, maybe it's possible, but it just seems very odd to me if that were the case. So it just makes me think how much of the writing itself, chapter to chapter, could just be either offloaded onto assistants or taken by assistants or team members that are kind of out of CU's hands. It just makes me wonder, because you think about a lot. I talked a lot when I was reading through the Hell Train week to week about how Tower of God kind of started making this shift from what it used to be into the OP main character power fantasy type of story that was all that there was in Webtoon at the time. Now it feels like there are a lot of successful Webtoons of a lot of successful different genres, but in those late 2010s, the OP main character power fantasy was popping off. There were like a million of them that were basically the same, and they were like far and away the most successful things going on for Webtoons. So it just makes me wonder, way back then even, was that not CU's decision? Was that not CU following trends? Was that, again, this is just all my own speculation, was that Line or Naver saying, hey, this is what is the most successful for us. We want Tower of God, which is one of the most successful series for us, to also go in that direction, to keep pulling in those sorts of numbers. And is that something that backfired? Again, it's just mistakes like that, kind of. It's like, you're seeing through the veil, and it's like, oh my god, is some of this not actually written by CU himself? And that's why we have these really crazy inconsistencies from time to time. And that's concerning. That is concerning. That's just something that last week's chapter, finding that out, kind of made me think about. Because there's a lot to criticize, even though things are good. I would say the one really big thing is Doan potentially being actually dead. I'm still gonna huff the copium that Doan and Doom are gonna be fine in the end, but if they're not, again, that just seems like a really weird level of hackery coming from CU. It's not about killing characters, but at the end of the day, Tower of God's a story. You have to tell a story with that, and we very easily could. Like I said, we spun wheels on a lot of the plot lines in this arc, but I think a half chapter would be, like maybe even less than half chapter, would be all it takes to write those into good deaths. Say, the astronaut guy, 13's coming in, and we have Doom. We could have Doom try to put up a fight. This guy's former top 200. He could even say something like, crap, if I still had the fang that I gave to Yama. We could connect like his struggle here, him being with Yama and the Beastkin being in danger and him wanting to support Yama now. We could connect that back to all the things that he sacrificed before, where Doom was kind of a crappy guy, but that was because all he cared about was himself and his brothers. He didn't care about the other Beastkin. It was just him, Yama, Paul, and the rest were nothing to him. And he did all of this stuff trying to protect and raise Yama and Paul. We could have some sort of flashback to that, connection with Yama, and then he gets killed by 13. And it's like, okay, that could take, honestly, just a few more panels even. Not even a full half of a chapter. And it could make that into a really solid death that ties into the storyline that Doom already had going on and brings that more into Yama. Yama just losing more and more people. And the same goes with Doan. Doan was already trying to rush out there being rash because she just wants to end this war. She woke up, Cha didn't want to work with the members of the Lopobia family. Doan's like, I don't want to work with them either, but I need to stop this war. She was acting rashly, and the way it happened was there was this kind of comedic, scene of her getting hit by the lightning bolt, and then we next see her and she's basically dead. And again, it just seems comedically nothing, but instead, I think that because we don't know even if Kun Dizzy is one of the, replacement family heads or not anyway, we don't know if she's even that highly ranked, we could have had even a full fight, because Doan's supposed to be this big, important ancient warrior that was important enough to be sealed in the wall and everything. It was a huge part of the war of Genesis and everything. We had an entire arc of the story. The walls, one half of that, the main character side of that, was all focused around Doan and her story and introducing her. So to have her just randomly get sniped is such a horrible way to end. But we could have her go out fighting for this peace that she wanted to create. She was acting rashly because she wanted to end this war. We give her a little bit of a fight with Kun Dizzy there, and then, she dies during the fight, but we make it dramatic. We maybe tie in some more flashbacks and have Doan go down fighting. I think that could be cool. Again, all you need is like a half chapter. We saw Yama fighting against Dizzy and Jade, and then Ratnagra comes in and he fights with her a bit the next chapter. Before Yama fights with them, just have a kind of full fight with Doan there, and still have Doan lose and die if you want, because that will just show how strong these Red Light District people are. But just having it be a random one-shot is extremely anticlimactic, especially if you're then just going to go from that to have her fighting with Yama inconclusively anyway. So we do have some issues there with the writing, but that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of last chapter specifically. There are some things I want to point out though, so I'm actually going to switch to this screen right here. And this is something that I've brought up a couple times before. This isn't really criticism of the story or anything, but people were talking about the sword on the boss captain, whatever, on his back looking like Lecalicus, and I brought up a lot of times before that because of L's and R's kind of being the same in Korean as it is in a few East Asian languages, it should really be, this is something that is a genuine, I don't want to say mistranslation, but it's something that a Lecalicus isn't really a thing. They're trying to say Regalicus. Like, that is what they're trying to allude to in the naming in Korean. They're trying to say Regalicus. And if you want to know what a Regalicus is, I brought it up here. It's an oarfish. That is Regalicus. It's a really, really rare fish. Hold on, let me bring up this picture. They're absolutely massive, and they the name Regalicus comes from royal, regal, so it's very clear that's King Zahard's weapon. That's what they're going for with the name, because Regalicus is its name and its stage 1 name. When it goes into stage 2, it's coelacanth, which is a fish. Again, going with the fish name still. It was a fish that was thought to be extinct for a long time, until eventually we just kind of found them, and we were like, huh, they were alive a really long time ago. Turns out they're still alive. Turns out they're not extinct. Whoops. So you go from this really rare, like barely ever seen fish, then stage 2 is named after this fish that we thought was extinct but turned out to be alive, and then finally stage 3 was Leviathan, which of course is like the demon prince of envy, but also this big, like in Judeo-Christian mythology, this big sea creature, this big sea monster. So that's where the naming scheme comes from, so it should definitely be Regalicus rather than Lecalicus. So that's something I wanted to bring up again, and also something with the design of the ship Wanryu that I kind of noticed, and I don't know if this is where CU's drawn inspiration for this design. A lot of the ship designs have manta ray shapes or different sorts of fish shapes. There's kind of a meme video that's been seen a lot of, look at this creepy thing we found underwater. That's a big fin squid, and I kind of feel like the ship Wanryu looks kind of like the big fin squid, where it has the like 4 T-posing arms coming out to the sides, and then the stuff in the middle and the big like head part at the top. I feel like the ship Wanryu looked like that. There might have been some design inspiration there. So I just wanted to talk about the naming inspiration for the Regalicus a bit, and the potential design inspiration for the ship Wanryu. But with all of that aside, let's actually read the chapter itself. Sorry if that was a bit of a boring lecture for you all, but it is what it is. So we have 643. Let me make sure the chapter's up for all of you. We have our warning as usual, and we're starting off straight away with the title splash. Battle between the family leaders, Intruders Part 3. We're seeing more of this creature that Traumeré has summoned. Maybe the creature is a manifestation of himself in a way. And Gastong's still missing his arm. We don't know if that's something that he can just fix or not. Is his evil spirit drawing the souls of fallen warriors to him? What a hideous sight. The spirits are crying out in pain. It feels like I'm reliving that day all over again, and we saw that scene a while back. I feel like that wasn't the end of, like, Gastong didn't say that at the end of last chapter, right? He said that like Didn't he say that like 2 or 3 chapters ago, like before we cut away from them? Or maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. And then he blocks an attack from it with the bonkin stick. And more of the clash between them. What a chaotic attack. We're having more green Shinsu there. Looks like Gastong is avoiding it. I like the way the eyes on this look. How the eyes are mouths. It has mouths on each of its abs. It's just this hungry spirit, basically. Honestly, this could look like something that could be qualified as a devil or demon in Tower of God. Right, we have more of Gastong coming in. Get a better shot of the sort of end of the pommel, I guess that'd be, of the bonkin stick. And I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be able to cut through any defenses. So if Traumare actually blocks it, that's kind of nuts. It's so hot. Okay, and it doesn't look like he's actually really able to block it. Have you forgotten the consequences of touching the Jade Awakening stick, with hands tainted by sin? It looks like the creature's coming in to protect Traumare. And this is cool too. We're seeing inside of the mouths are all of those angry spirits that we've seen before. And he can fire his Shinsu from all of them. This is very cool. Like like I said, a monstrous final incarnation of Traumare's spirit almost. And this is the eyeball thing that what was it that Richemont used. So he's pulling out the eyeball thing that Richemont used, and see the eyeball has the family symbol on it that's not the Pobedao family symbol. Is this going to be the Eurasia family symbol? Because this is the family symbol that's on the 20th floor that we saw before on Richemont's eyeball thing. And of course Gastong absorbed Richemont back. So I guess that's why Gastong has the ability now. That person standing before me is no longer my friend. We don't belong in this world anymore. We're living incarnations. And we see a purple flame of evil itself. And I wonder if that's relating back to Blossom's flame that they mentioned earlier. Gastong is still using the eyeball to tank, but he's taking damage through it. Again, just really hyping up how crazy powerful Traumare is. And we're seeing the space there. It's time to end this. Or is it not space, but it's actually... Oh, I think it's that he's cutting through multiple chunks of space. He's like popping holes in space itself with his 3D disconnect. Traumare Shinsu control skill. Then everything starts being destroyed. We have Yurik looking on. Everything converging together? Or is it just more of a shot of that spirit of evil? Is he trying to destroy this whole area? Yeah, and he's just, again, just chewing through the space itself with the disconnect. Gastong is getting pretty messed up. Honestly, I would have thought... So to me, going into this, my sort of rating for them was if you're family head level, you kind of have to use all you've got to kill somebody else who's family head level. But in a straight up fight, my opinion was Yurik beats any of the other three here in like a straight up regular fight. And honestly, I would have said that straight up regular fight, I would have said that the Murchia we saw fight Luzlek, I'd say that Murchia would have beaten Traumerei, and I would have said Gastang beats Traumerei before this. Gastang versus Murchia, I don't know who I would say, but I would have said out of the four of them, in just a straight up 1v1, pull everything out that they have fight, I would have said that Traumerei was the weakest of the four. But honestly, what does Gastang have left beyond the Bonken stick? Meanwhile, Traumerei is just wild. There's no reason to hesitate. And we have this purple flame. All I need to do. And it starts cutting in. And it looks like it's even burning through Traumerei's disconnect. Is incinerate that evil I see before me. And it's spreading through everywhere that it looks like Traumerei Shinsu is. It's like burning through his Shinsu. Alright, more massive panel. Maybe did not need to be like even half that length to get the information across to us. Some of the shots are, I don't know, some of the composition, I'm like, it just feels a little goofy at times. I'm like, why would you choose this angle? It just doesn't seem super flattering. Those flames. What's Gastang doing with them? Those are Blossom Flames. Okay, so it is. How are you able to activate them? I thought Blossom sealed them away. And it's kind of weird how they just threw, like it went from Yeon's flames to Gastang's flames to Blossom's flames. We're just throwing fire on all of the family heads when it would be really cool if they had, you know, more unique stuff. Like I've said since Gastang was introduced, basically, it would be cool if his stuff was more unique than just fire, because most of what we've seen him use is fire. And I think his summoning creatures from writing and objects from writing is a really cool application of that. Like when he made the pen blades, when he made all of the like mythical figures, I think that's a really cool thing to do for Gastang. It's just weird how we keep throwing more flames on these characters. You're right, Blossom sealed off her flames after what happened that day. However, she shared one little spark with me first. As she gave me the spark, she asked me to use it to protect someone that means a lot to me. When the time to use the spark finally came, I didn't do anything. Instead of protecting my own daughter, I deluded myself into believing it was more important to protect the world we had created, and she was so disappointed in me, she never returned. So even after she spoke to him that day about Zahard sealing himself in the red dump, Gastang still chose to protect the status quo. I figured the spark probably died and went out after that, but it seems I was wrong. Just look how brightly the flames burn once more. This isn't good. Those flames consume everything in their path, including anything invisible. So it did seem like they were spreading through Traumerei's Shinsu. It's like the Shinsu itself was flammable and getting caught up. And them spreading through anything, it almost reminds me of maybe Amaterasu from Naruto. That kind of feeling with the black flames and everything. That means they can burn through the attributes of rupture. So again, it's like it's spreading through his Shinsu itself. My Shinsu control skill. That could be a serious problem. And this, again, I mentioned what else can Gastang pull out. This seems like a last-ditch effort of just, hey, Blossom gave me this thing and I can use it once. I didn't use it my one time before to save N, but I'm using it my one time now to kill you. As far as I know, those are the most destructive flames in the whole town. Man, Yirang getting nerfed to hell. They're the ultimate predator. Nothing can stand in their way. But I don't remember Blossom's flames being so small and timid. Gastang only appears to have received a tiny spark from Blossom. I just need to wait until that spark dies out. And again, this is something I mentioned a lot this arc with consistency to past lore stuff, not just blog post stuff, but stuff that we've seen in the actual main series itself. Stuff about the princess system not being really consistent, things about the timeline and the family heads not being super consistent. Having inconsistencies like that in the lore and the writing really, really hurts a series like Tower of God that, again, before season 3, I would say before this saga, I think things were probably still pretty solid even in the nest, even though we retconned Yama's backstory. That's just one character's backstory, and it was fine to retcon. It doesn't connect with too many other things to mess things up too much, but Tower of God was always something that everybody's like, oh, you got to read it for the world building. The world building's so good. The lore is so good. So to have like such big inconsistencies again and again, this arc especially, in the lore, and again, some of the stuff we're getting introduced to, I really liked the Amazu flashback. I think that fleshed things out and was like so perfect. But then we get the V flashback, and the V flashback adds a lot of things that I'm like, I thought the flashback chapters were good and all, but I just really don't know about adding some of the stuff that we added there and how some of that stuff really logically fits into what we already knew. So I'm really skeptical about giving us those flashbacks. I don't know if we should have gotten those flashbacks, but we'll see. Stop him, and we have the flesh of that creature spreading out. Moving toward Gastang. Wall of Malice. Is he trying to extinguish all the flames by creating an endless wall? That's exactly the sort of thing. Okay, super long unnecessary panels that you would think of doing. Then Gastang cuts through it. Again, I think with maybe some cleaner, smaller panels and better choreography to flow from panel to panel, like I think the general beats of this fight are good. It, again, earlier more than now, spun its wheels a lot. I think this fight could be good, but I think the art's letting it down. Not that the art isn't detailed, but it might be that the art is maybe overdone. Even. I think the panels should be smaller and they should flow better. Now, the wall's being cut through. The biggest question is whether the army of creatures Traumare's gathered until now will be strong enough to block all of my flames. And we have the creature itself. And then when the world had reached the end times, he brings the book back. I decided to wipe the land clear of all rotten decay. Manifest yourself. 4,000 day-long flood. Alright, we're having the floodwaters be summoned. And it starts cutting through everything. And again, I wonder if this is like Shinsu, or if this is like, it's so weird to think because of the way that Tower of God's world works. I guess this isn't Shinsu, this is like actual water. Rupture or disconnect, either way. I think Rupture is a cool name. It works either way. He's creating more orbs with it. I guess Yudik said, I can't let this stand, and then decided to let it stand for a little while longer. Because we saw Yudik before through the thing, so we know that this isn't happening before. Like, I think that would have worked if this was, like, before it opened up, before Yudik and them, but then again, that doesn't make a lot of sense either. So yeah, the timeline here is a little goofy. The thick wall of creatures surrounding him isn't regenerating nearly as quickly now. The fateful moment's finally drawing near. The death of my friend and fellow family head, Lopobia Traumare. Okay, it didn't end there. This is interesting because they really are busting everything out. So if the plan for Merchia is to, snipe a kill here, it's looking more and more possible. We have another shot of flame sent out by Gastang. Hey, I have a feeling you and I are going to get along really well together. And what are they wearing? What do you mean? And we have a tiny little kraken. You like animals more than humans. Criticism, they look way too jacked here. They look way too buff here. It kind of ruined the little kid young look they had in some of the flashbacks we've seen before. You like animals more than humans. And I like books more than humans too. Based on that, according to my extremely logical calculations, there's a 90% or higher chance of us becoming friends. Why the hell makes you think I want to be your friend? Get lost. Now another flashback. You guys aren't so bad after all. He cuts through with the flame. And we have one last wall of flesh between it and Traumerei. That's it. It's all over now. Oh, when we see the spatial distortion, is that going to be Yurik coming in? They both turn their attention to Yurik coming in. He's charging a punch. And sends a shockwave forward. Looking like through Traumerei's creature. And into the floodwaters? Oh shit, it's him. Starts to knock everything away. That's a really good shot of Yurik. This is a really, really good shot of Yurik. That's one of the nicest looking panels I feel like we've had in a while. Actually, I say that a lot with a lot of series where I'm like, oh, this is the best whatever in a while, when it's no, there's a lot of other really great things. A lot of the art of Yama's transformation was really good too. Yurik Mazano. If you two bastards don't stop fighting right now, there's going to be hell to pay. You've already caused enough destruction, and that's where we end. Alright. So, here's the thing. I don't think it just ends here. I think things have gone way too out of control. But we will see. We'll see next week, hopefully, I guess. I'm torn on this chapter. There were a lot of things I really like. I think the general structure of this fight could work really well. I think we should have seen some of the stuff outside of this fight, like the Revolution people coming in, the stuff with Lobadan and Kirin and Dowan and Doom and Yama and all that. I think we should have done most of that first before getting into this fight so that we could really focus on the fight, and then we could kind of condense the fight a little bit so that it's not spinning wheels quite as much. We don't have to waste as much time. And I feel like though the overall outline of the fight is good, it's let down by the art a little bit, because there's some stuff that's just way overdone, way too long, a lot of unnecessary panels. And I think that the flow should maybe be a little bit smoother. It's let down a bit by the lore stuff being confused by some of the flashbacks. Some things with their relationship seemed really, really clear, and then Siu would do things that it's I don't know if it's because of stuff lost in translation, or if there's just some weirdness with the writing. And I think it's let down a little bit, of course, by the pacing, but by the inconsistency. I don't know, inconsistency with what it feels like the characters should be at times. So I don't know. I'm very, very torn on it. I think that there are parts of this chapter that I think really highly of, that I think are really amazing, and there are parts and aspects of this chapter that I think really aren't great. Most of the stuff is kind of nitpicky, but the thing with those kind of smaller, more nitpicky things are that this arc has just had so many things that are off or wrong that they really add up and paint a bad picture. So I don't know. I'm just torn, and it really bums me out to be torn because this is a fight between a family heads, between two family heads. And this is something that I've said early in the Sprout a lot, that I was like, this could be an extremely, like, even when things were bad, I'm like, this has all the makings of an extremely exciting arc. And I was really hoping it would be an extremely exciting arc, because when you look at the pieces that are at play, we had the Lopo Bia and Popadao family going into this. So many characters that we already knew, who didn't really do much of anything. So many new characters coming in. Branch leaders, riding kids of Gastang, stuff like that. Most of them didn't go anywhere or do anything. We had these characters that we've known and loved for a long time coming in, like Yama and his group, and some of them may have died without doing anything, without being on screen for months in a really dumb way. Most of them really didn't do anything. Yama got off screen for forever. Like Yama's showing here, if you just cut out everything other than Yama, his showing here is pretty good. But it's just, we would see him like once in every couple of months, which is kind of a mess. We had two family heads coming into this, and we spun wheels with them a lot. We had weird interactions with them and the regulars. The game, I think a lot of people complained when that was still going on. The game kind of made it a little bit of a slog. That kind of hurt things. It didn't need to hurt things. The game could have been done well. It was just not a horrible idea, but in practice, like when it came down to how they actually executed it, it was executed probably nearly as poorly as you could have executed it. And then you have Haixong coming in. The only one we've really seen is Yurik. Yurik is here. We haven't seen enough yet. And then FUG coming in as well. And we just have Merchia, who's just standing here so far. He stopped Yurik from having Revolution escape. We had Revolution coming in. We got a cool introduction, but they're leaving now, and we could have focused more on them. It's like, if we're talking about a chessboard, we had so many exciting pieces on the board that it's like, how could this arc fail? How could you mess this up? There's so many exciting pieces here. People want to see and learn more about Revolution. People want to see Haixong. People want to see FUG. People like the idea of a war between two great families, a fight between two family heads. This seems like an absolute slam dunk. And some of the flashbacks, like the Yamazu flashback, have been that. But then you get outside of the flashbacks and you get into the main story, and it's like, we took what had the ingredients to be potentially the best arc, and we made what, again, I've been saying is definitely, by the longest shot I can think of, the worst arc in Tower of God. This was a really rough arc. Like, I could compare this to literally any of them from the past, and this one has some pretty high highs, again with the Yamazu flashback, but has just such a cavalcade of low lows. The lowest, like, if you were to ask me the maybe top 5 worst scenes or worst bits of writing in the series, all 5 are probably coming from this arc alone, just the past 43-ish chapters. It's rough. It's really rough. And again, this is talking about somebody who really loves Tower of God, even through Season 3. I like the cage, though it has its problems. I absolutely love the walls. I am a big walls defender. The nest also has its problems, but I really like the nest, even though it has its problems. It's probably around, if I were to do an arc ranking, it's maybe around the middle, maybe a little bit higher than the middle itself, but it's around the middle. I absolutely love the hotel. I think the hotel, or if I did a ranking, the hotel arc, it'd be pretty high up. And when it comes to the stuff between the hotel and the Sprout, I still think the stuff between the hotel and the Sprout, it wasn't as good as the hotel arc, but it was still good, and it capped off. It ended with the Mazano and Merchia fight, which was incredibly good. So again, every arc before this arc, even in Season 3, even when the earlier ones had some issues, I still liked every arc in a general sense, and even the more recent ones, like the hotel arc, I thought was great. And then we just get this arc. So this isn't a season 3 hate thing. This arc just has been really bad. Again, like I said, the writing has been weirdly inconsistent. And I'm glad when I look at comments with people agreeing, because I feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. When I look at the Korean comments and I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is like, some chapters really great, but then some chapters are like abysmally not good. Just saying this chapter wasn't abysmally not good. There were things I loved about it, things that I really don't know what CU's doing when I think about them. I just don't know with this arc. But I'm kind of dragging this out before I end. But when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not crazy. When I see things like the distribution of scores throughout chapters, where scores were pretty much in the like 9s or 8s across the board up until season 3, and then even then, you know, there was maybe like a 7 or something occasionally, maybe a rare like 5, but then you get toward this arc, in this arc there's just constant like 5s, even 3s, there's just constant super low rated chapters, because unlike past arcs, there's just been constant super bad chapters. Again, I've compared that to The Nest, which wasn't that long ago. The Nest was 3 arcs ago, and I've compared a lot the fights and the character work and the way that chapters were used in The Nest compared to the way that the chapters are used here and compared to the fights and the character development here. And it's just a night and day difference. The quality is on a completely different level, even in The Nest, as flawed as it was compared to this arc. And then you compare it to the hotel arc 2 arcs ago, and it was just so tightly written with no wasted time and did a great job with its characters and with introducing new things. And again, compare that to this arc, and the level of consistency there, were up until the end with some of the Kun stuff that was a little questionable, the consistency was really, really just straight across the board, really good. Maybe not the absolute best, but really good straight across the board. And now, this arc, I think the issue is that it's the least consistent ever, where you do still have Tower of God, you have these chapters where you're like, that's Tower of God. Still, these 8, 9 out of 10 chapters, but then you just have so many chapters, and it's just a drastic up and down of going from some 8 or 9 out of 10 chapters to some dismal chapters, and then a couple that are in between. Like, I'd say this chapter is maybe like a 6, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully, though, with a break, with a hiatus, CU and the team can fix this. They can pivot, they can get back to things, because again, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not like they were like writing poor story from the start. No, before this arc, I'm fine with most things. Again, there are a couple things here and there that's like, not that great, but most things, pretty darn solid. So yeah, I'll end things there after that discussion. Thank you for watching. Like if you did like the video, comment down there, tell me what you thought of this week's chapter, my thoughts and reaction and all that. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Twitter if you want. If you're linked to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. Just ask and you can get the link. If you would like to help support the channel by dropping a super thanks, that's appreciated. If you want to help support the channel, get One Piece videos a little bit early, get your name at the end of videos, you can do that by hitting join down below to become a member, or go to patreon.com/HakuofTheTubes, or link will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching and sticking through with Tower of God. Tower of God, of course, is a series that I absolutely love, or else, despite its shortcomings this arc, I would not be reading it if I didn't love it so much for years upon years upon years of my life. If anybody asked me what my favorite series was, whether manga, manhwa, novels, anything, it would be Tower of God. Tower of God's my favorite. It might not always be the best, but it's always my favorite. So we're in a rough spot with it right now, but hopefully, it's not like out of nowhere, this is just horrible. We've had plenty of evidence of CU writing really well in the past, so hopefully all we need to do is write with her really well again. And here's the thing too, is that it's one thing if you never get feedback, if you never get criticism, if you never get something that you can learn from. But I think you look at the Korean comments and see who has gotten a whole lot of criticism, a whole lot of things to learn from. So, there's that. But yeah, thank you to everybody for your support. Thank you for continuing with Tower of God. And thank you to patrons and channel members for helping to support me to continue to make videos on it. Thank you to Chosen Regular Evan Holly, Magical Girls, FR Nono, JA, and the D-Band, Cheriton Students, David Langstaff and Folded Goal Slayer Candidates, SG and Stan Cedar, and Pure Element Pateardale. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.